Well, good day, viewers. Today we have a 2006 Honda Odyssey. It's got the 3.5 V6 and it's got a parasitic draw, and another shop put this on as a temporary fix. It's a marine battery disconnect. This thing's had a history of the battery going dead for the last few years, sometimes a couple of days, and it'll be dead. And nobody apparently can find the draw. The battery's been changed a couple of times. So we're gonna remove this disconnect switch, and I'm gonna put a temporary switch in here so I can check it for a draw. So I've temporarily installed a battery disconnect switch in series in the battery negative cable like this. And I've started the vehicle, ran it, shut it off, rolled the windows down, closed the doors, and connected the ammeter in series across the disconnect switch, and then opened the disconnect switch. And right now we see 980 milliamps, 0.99, almost 1 amp of current flow. It's 10:45 a.m. so we're going to wait a few minutes to see if this draw drops, and that's definitely a significant drain on the vehicle. I think I'm also going to scan it and see if there's any codes or if there's any modules awake. So with my scanner interface plugged in, it jumps up to 1.14 amps. So I'm going to try scanning this thing, see if there's any codes in any computers for door latch switches or key cylinder switches or something like the Toyota I had a few weeks ago. I wasted a considerable amount of time, and if I had scanned it, I would have seen a fault code in the BCM for a key cylinder switch stuck. I've never scanned this vehicle. This is a new customer. Well, come on, you can auto ID. Key is on. There we go. Let's do a code scan. See what controllers respond. I have the key on now, and I've got the disconnect switch turned back on so that we're not pulling current through the ammeter. Well, I'll pick up when this done a network scan. Well, that was painfully slow. So we got a battery voltage failure in the ABS module, probably likely due to the disconnect switch. We got a battery voltage high in the ABS module, probably because somebody had a battery charger on it with the key on it. And no signal from the satellite safing sensor. Other than that, we have no other fault codes in any other controllers. And of course, the monitors this vehicle are not running past because the battery being disconnected every time. So I'm going to do a network code clear, although it doesn't really matter. I'll wait until after. So we're going to return to the the switch and check the current flow again. So we're down to 400 milliamps or 0.4 amps. I've got the disconnect switch open, so it's going through the ammeter now. I've got the doors open, but I've got the door jamb switches held with a pair of vice grips like that on both sides so that it simulates the doors being closed. I notice they have the interior light canceled, probably with the override switch on the, but we're going to let it sit now. It's 10:55, and we're going to see if after 20 minutes the draw drops any lower. So after 20 minutes we're still at 404 milliamps. I had to change out the battery because my battery was getting low. I traced it to a fuse in the fuse panel here. The fuse, 7.5 amp fuse in the middle there at the bottom row. This one right here has a voltage drop across it, so we'll set that up and we'll have a look at it. So we got 3.7 millivolts drop across that fuse. Let's see what fuse that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I gotta look at this. According to that, that's the 7.5 amp backup fuse. Now why would that be causing a problem? Let's pull that fuse and see if that eliminates some of the draw. So with that fuse removed, it drops to 8 milliamps. So let's find out what's on that fuse. So here's a power distribution diagram for fuse 7, that 7.5 amp fuse. It feeds a pile of stuff. It feeds the power window master switch, memory seat switch if it has that. It feeds wiper washer switch, immobilizer control unit receiver, feeds gauge control module, navigation computer, navigation system. Wow. It also feeds the MICU rear junction box, right sliding power door. Now they did say they had an issue with the right door and there was a fuse removed for the right, I think it was the right door. Let me see my notes here. The left siding door pops open and a fuse was pulled. So that could be the cause of the problem. I wonder if we can get to this connector here. Looks like there's a bunch of connectors to try to figure out which way the circuit is, current is flowing, possibly with an amp clamp over the wires. I don't want to start disabling each and every one of these things. So I'm going to print this diagram. So from that fuse panel, that fuse feeds several connectors, X pin 5, or sorry, K pin 5, X35, G3, and G6. Now these connectors are the G connectors on the back side of the fuse panel, but the X and K connectors are on the front. So I'm going to try to identify these red-white wires. I put the fuse back in and the 405 milliamp draw is back, and I'm going to try with an amp clamp to figure out if one of these wires coming off of K, for instance, red-white wire, has current flow on it. So I unplugged connector K, which is this one right here, and the draw went from 403 down to 360. So then I unplugged connector X, which is this big connector. It's a latched connector, and the draw dropped to basically 380. So that leaves this connector, which is on the back side, and that goes to the rear junction box. So I think we're going to find this rear junction box, because I can't get this connector on the back side of the fuse panel without taking the fuse panel off. So that circuit feeds L and G3, feed this rear junction box control unit. I'm going to see where that is. So that rear junction box is behind the right rear quarter panel. You got to pull this trim off here, and you can access it. So I'm going to try and flip this out so we can get at some of these connectors here. Try and isolate which circuit in this is potentially causing the draw. So I've got one of the connectors at that rear junction box unplugged, and it's down to 30 milliamps, which is acceptable. Let's see which one that is. Okay, so that's that connector right there, which is G. I believe that's G. Yeah, that's the third connector, or the second connector. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Yeah, second connector. That's G2. Location 5 on the diagram here. G2 goes to, let's see, rear wire harness right branch. So let's see what the diagram shows. Left siding power door lock, and then power tailgate control. Does this have power? Yes, it's power tailgate control as well. So this is the circuit that has the issue. I'm going to plug this back in again. See if I hear any click. I don't know if the camera's picking that up. There's a relay of some sort clicking in the left rear corner here. So maybe this is a problem with the power tailgate control, and it's not the door. Well, we're gonna do some more investigating. So according to this, I've got 100 milliamps, 120 milliamps draw on that white red wire. Let's zero this amp clamp. About 100 milliamps, which is about what it takes to turn a relay on, which I hear clicking over in the left corner. So let's look at this diagram here and where this goes to see if there's a relay activated in there. So I see there's a connector in here, C701, and I found it in the service literature. It's underneath the trim panel on the left side, so let's take that off. Well, it turns out access to that connector wasn't so nice. It's behind the spare tire, and to get that plastic out, you got to take both back seats out. I unbolted the seat brackets from the center here, but I couldn't lift them out. I don't know what's involved in removing them, but I did manage to get in there and get that connector disconnected, and it drops to 30 milliamps. So let's see what that suggests the problem is. So here is the connector I unplugged, C701, and it feeds the left power sliding door control unit. Let's see where that lives. I hope it's not behind that stupid that 7.5 amp fuse feeds the rear junction box, A6 in, G2 out, and feeds this control module, which is grounded all the time. Let's see where that lives. Behind left rear side trim, on floor wire harness. Oh, that's the module that's right above that connector. Well, I wonder if we can just disable that one wire, depin that one wire, and what it'll affect, because he's mentioned that they did have a problem with the left sliding door and they had pulled a fuse, so obviously they're not using it. So let's go back to this. I'm going to print this, and I'm going to depin that one wire from that connector and plug it back in again. So let's see this connector view here. 701 pin 5, white and red wire. 701 pin 5, white and red wire, but it doesn't show the connector view, but I think I can figure it out. So I depinned pin 5 at connector C701 and plugged it back in, and the parasitic draw down to about 30 milliamps. Let's have a look. It's about 33 milliamps. So now we're going to see what doesn't work. I imagine the left sliding door may not work, but I think they were manually using it. But I hope the lift gate works. So I'm going to turn this disconnect switch back on, otherwise it'll blow the fuse in my multimeter, and then see if the rear tailgate closing feature works. Where's the button on this thing? Is there a button on it? Here's where that connector lives, way up inside there. It was plugged into this clip, and I want to plug it back in after. Is there a button on here, or do I just pull down on this? Well, I'm an idiot. It doesn't have power lift gate. I saw the big piston on this side, and I thought it was the actuator, so this doesn't have power lift gate. So everything seems to work except this door doesn't open now. I think they've got it disabled. I'm going to talk to them and see if they're okay with it just disabled. because the other sliding door does work. Because fixing this thing is probably going to be fairly expensive. I'm not sure what the issue is, but at least we've got the draw down to an acceptable level now. "25 milliamps, 30 milliamps." So the spec is typically under 50. Definitely 400 would kill the battery probably in a couple of days, especially in the wintertime. 400 milliamps is like a side marker, a couple of marker lights on. So I got off the phone with the customer, and the left sliding door hasn't worked for some time. So we're going to leave it disabled. They're just going to use the right sliding door. It does not have a power lift gate, as I thought it did. I looked at the cylinder and I thought it was the actuator. Nevertheless, we're down to 25 to 28 milliamps, and that is acceptable. So we're going to take the disconnect switch off and reinstall the battery cable normally and clear all the fault codes out of all the processors. So I did a post network scan, and we've still got the battery voltage code, safing sensor code, and then we got some codes in the gauges for the right power sliding door control unit lost communication. That's probably due to me unplugging stuff. So we're going to clear all codes read by this scan. As long as there's no warning lights on, we're gonna ship it. I'll pick up when it gets done here. So as it said, it cleared codes out of 14 controllers. I'm just gonna look in here one more time and see if we have, oh, that's the unit information. Door locks, let's try that. Codes. Too many modules in this vehicle, and it's old already. Should have a communication code with the left sliding door lock. Nope. Let's try this. All body electrical codes. Yeah, right power sliding door lock. Lost communication with left power sliding door lock. So, makes sense. That's disabled now. So we're going to ship it. Thanks for watching.